Hello and welcome to the September 18th edition of the Thursday Night Thunder podcast with AJ and MMK. This is episode 28 of the series. I'm your host, Adam Jason Sinclair, and tonight Mykkal and I will once again bring you the best discussion about the world of modern motorsports. Coming off the biggest win of his career in the Congruity NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing Series, Mykkal Chavrinos is primed for a run at the championship in class. His victory in the Indy at the prestigious Cornwall Quality Tools NHRA U.S. Nationals was the perfect start to the four-race Road to the Championship playoffs in the category, and Stavrinos is eager to continue his hot streak at this weekend's NHRA 4-wide Carolina Nationals at ZMAX Dragway. The 4-wide spectacle adds a whole new thrilling dynamic to the playoff race in Pro Mod, and Stavrinos can hardly wait for the weekend to get going in his Al Nabi Performance Camaro.
This weekend is the 8th of 10 events during the 2025 Congruity and NHRA Pro Mod season and the second of 4 playoff races. This weekend's event in Indy is also powered by Shelton Insurance and Real Estate. It's the first ever 4-wide race in Pro Mod's Road to the Championship, and it's a loaded 20-plus car field coming to Charlotte. Travis Harvey is the defending winner of the Charlotte Fall race, but there's an added dynamic this time around with the 4-wide setup. Stavrinos' team, J.R. Gray, who had a dominating regular season, will look to get on track after suffering an early exit in Indy. He's currently 61 points back in second with multi-time world champion Marquis Smith, 68 points behind Stavrinos. Billy Banaka is just a point behind Smith, while Derek Minholt, who was the runner-up in Indy, rounds out the top 5.
The rest of the loaded lineup includes past champs Jordan Lasik, Mike Castellana, Stevie Jackson, and Mike Jennis, and standouts like Ken Quaternicchio, Justin Bond, and Mason Wright. It all ends up to a challenging weekend, but Stavrinos is ready and locked in on the task at hand. The Congruity NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing Series will kick off with 2 qualifying rounds on Friday at 3 and 4:45 p.m. Eastern Time, with the final 2 rounds set for 11:30 a.m. and 2:20 p.m. on Saturday. The first round of eliminations is slated for 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. To purchase tickets to the NHRA 4-wide Carolina Nationals at ZMAX Dragway, please visit zmaxdragway.com or call 1-800-455-FANS. For more information about NHRA, please visit nhra.com. I know our guest is standing by, but let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the NHRA for a moment, because there is some big news there. The biggest news, of course, was the announcement that Tony Stewart will be racing next season for Elite Motorsports with a partnership with Tony Stewart Racing. He'll be racing in the Top Fuel again next season. Hopefully he has a really good year. But it'll be interesting to see how he and his wife, Leah Pruitt, whether they end up competing in a few final rounds next season. I'm sure it'll be interesting. He did have some funny announcements when he made the announcement about that yesterday. He said that he and his wife had just purchased a new couch. So he knew it was a really comfy couch, and if he ended up staying on it because he defeated her too many times, he'd at least be comfy for a few weeks. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. It's been a long time since there's been a husband-wife team competing against each other in Top Fuel. The last time was roughly 30 years ago when John Bodie Smith and Rhonda Hartman Smith competed against each other. And they only competed one time head-to-head. I don't remember how that went, but it was definitely a long time since that happened. So we'll see how it goes next season. How do you feel about Tony Stewart competing in Top Fuel for a different team next year?
I don't know. I think it's different. It's kind of different. I don't know. Is he just branching out a little bit? I don't know. I think it's different, though, and I think it will be interesting. I think him being in Top Fuel anyway is already interesting, so it can only get more interesting, really.
I think part of the thing he's doing is to be sort of like like Dale Earnhardt was when he was running in NASCAR, where he had his own. He raced for Richard Childress, and he had his own team there with Steve Park and Michael Waltrip and, of course, Dale Earnhardt Jr. So he has the same sort of thing he's trying now. He's going to be just going a little bit a different way. Tony Stewart is nothing if not a historian in the world of motorsports. He's tried different things. He knows that it works if it's a good team, and I think he really likes being in Top Fuel anyway. So it'll be cool to see how well he does, and hopefully he has a really good year.
Do you think Tony and his wife will ever potentially have their own team together?
No, I don't think so. I think that he wants to keep it separate. He doesn't want to stay on the same team with her. He wants to sort of keep the business separate from having both he and her on the same team. I think that's probably smart too. So it's a little bit
True.
different
And then
than how the Forces have done it, where the Force family was all just one team, and I think sometimes it got a little complicated for them.
I was just about to actually ask you, what do you think of Brittany Force retiring?
I'm not sure if she's actually retiring, or if she's going to take a couple of years off, the same sort of thing as Pruitt did. I know her sister was huge in the Ashley Force Hood. There was really huge in the NHRA, and then she decided to step back, and now she's married to. She's gotten married, of course, to Mr. Hood there. Courtney Force, of course, also stepped back away from the thing, got married to Rahal, to Graham Rahal, and so you never know. She might come back. I know she's having a really good year. She's dominating quite a bit. She's setting records left and right now. So sort of she's leaving at the top, I suppose. You could look at it that way, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes. You never know. I think the fact that John Force will never race again, that kind of changed her perspective, and I think that's also changed her sister's perspectives as well. So they know how dangerous it is. They don't want to end up being in the car for their entire lives, and they definitely don't want to end up with the sort of injuries that John Force sustained that he still hasn't totally recovered from.
I could see that. I could see how that would be hard.
There's also other news, of course, with Tony Stewart Racing. He decided to team up with Rico Abreu again next season, where he had Rico run with it for him a few years ago. Rico's going to be running in the sprint cars again next year, so that'll be interesting to see. I think Rico Abreu is an amazing driver. He had the stint in the Craftsman Truck Series several years ago. He's also always been successful in the midgets and sprints. So I think it'd be funny if they end up modifying one of the cars for in Top Fuel for Rico Abreu, because I know he'd be good at it, but they'd have to do some serious modifications. So I know the Rico's joked about that in the past, so but it'd be cool if he actually had a chance to try it. I think he'd be really good at it.
One thing I will say about him, and yes, he's a great driver. I completely agree. But I see a lot of fan interaction from him, and I really like that.
Mm-hmm. He seems like he has a lot of fun with what he does, and he's sort of made fun of himself and his height, even with the Tony Stewart thing, where Tony Stewart is standing next to him, introducing him as his feature driver, and he reaches his arm out, and you have to pan the camera down about 2 feet to see Rico standing there. So it's kind of funny, but I know he's amazing, and he's run really really well. He's never let his size determine who he is. He's a really big guy in terms of spirit, in terms of the of talent. So hopefully he has a really good year next year with Tony Stewart. Now, if Tony Stewart has a really good year next year as well, he deserves it. He's a really interesting character. He's had a lot of fun in the NHRA. He's had a lot of fun in sprint cars. And it's sad that he had to step away from NASCAR, but it was necessary, I think, for him and for the sport as well. Our guest tonight is Marquis Smith. Smith grew up at a dirt track back in Idaho Falls, watching his dad race, but never got a chance to try it out for himself until a few years ago. He built a hobby stock to try and run, but he found himself having way more fun in his legend car. His car is a tribute to his dad's race car growing up, and he's starting to find some success until he broke his ankle and leg in an accident at State Line Speedway. However, he's now fully recovered and happy to be back in the car. We'd now like to welcome Marquis Smith to the program. Hello, how you doing,
Hey,
sir?
how are you? Good. How are you?
Doing doing pretty well, thank you. First off, who's your favorite driver in the racing world?
In the racing world, like in general, or
Yeah, in
I guess
general.
I guess in general,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in general it'd probably be like Chase Elliott. I grew up in a Jeff Gordon house, but was too young to ever really appreciate the whole NASCAR thing. And then when Jeff Gordon retired, Chase stepped into his car, so I kind of just followed him from the 24 to the 9.
I know you've just gotten started in your racing career, but what's your greatest racing memory before, including your racing career and before that?
Probably before. I was pretty young watching my dad race, so I don't have a lot of specifics, but just being at the racetrack in Idaho Falls and being around all our friends and family. Kind of just memories like that are kind of my biggest before I started racing. And then I guess probably one of my biggest now would be, well, this past weekend at State Line on championship night. I won a heat race after everything that I've kind of gone through this season. So that felt pretty good.
How did you originally get your start in motorsports? I know you said you grew up on the racetrack, but you're watching your father there. But what was your how did you originally get started?
Uh, I guess originally just like go karts at Fast Kart and things like that, but like truly competitively, I had ended up with a hobby stock and built one and kind of tried to get my feet wet in that. But no real prior experience, I guess, outside of iRacing.
If you were to give advice to somebody looking to get started in the world of motorsports, what would that be?
Look at all the classes at your local track, see what seems realistic to you, and don't be afraid to build something or buy something and at least give it a shot. Because by giving it a shot, you're doing more than half the people in the stands would either have the opportunity to or too afraid to try to do themselves because they feel like they would never be able to compete.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the difference between the hobby car and the legend car?
Well, the hobby stock, they're production cars, older cars, generally speaking. You can buy your parts from wrecking yards or other people and things like that. Whereas the legend car, it's a smaller spec chassis with a fiberglass body. Everything's ran through the sanctioning body INEX, so all the parts are INEX parts or very few approved dealers of things like that. So you're in a much smaller box with what you can't buy, and can't do in a legend car compared to a hobby stock.
We talked a lot about on this program about the importance of sponsorship. What sort of sponsors do you have in your car, and what advice do you give somebody who's trying to find a sponsor?
I have a lot of really great people around me that have helped me out a lot, like Mandir Construction, Northwest Building Components, my friends in the TDL Industries, D&D Auto Body, the Getz family, uh, JD Industries. Those guys have helped me out a lot. Mike Doss and Jeremy Doss, among others, like Ace Mobile Mechanic. And a lot of people have always asked me, like, how do you get sponsors? Like, some of them are of the opinion that they'll approach you at a racetrack if you're performing well enough. And that might happen sometimes, but the best thing to do is to just try, ask them. The worst thing they're going to say is no. And a lot of people are just afraid to ask because I guess it feels awkward to ask for money to a lot of people, myself included. But, just reach out either via email or go into the business, try to speak with the owner or manager, pitch yourself as best you can, and hope they say yes.
What's your most challenging aspect of being involved in racing?
Uh, Probably financial. I mean, I up until this year, I've been pretty lucky to avoid any like major costs, I guess, outside of some upgrades that I made this off season. But I feel like that's a kind of common stressor for some people. Racing's not an inherently cheap sport, and if you're not making a bunch of money or have a lot of sponsor support, it can make things kind of hard at times.
Well, let me throw you out to my co-host, Michael Mulalley Kapalo, there in Afraid of Washington, who has a few questions for you as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first question, you said that you grew up around dirt track racing. Did you ever get the chance to try it yourself?
Outside of a go-kart in my friend's backyard, no. I was just really young, and my dad had a job that moved us around quite a bit. So before I was old enough to give it a real shot, we had moved.
Oh. Okay, so you've seen a little bit of both. What would you say as of right now, whether it be with your own eyeballs or something you've seen on TV, do you prefer asphalt or dirt?
Guess I'd have to say asphalt, just because it's what I have the most experience with and what I've kind of fallen in love with and do all summer. So that might change if I ever get the chance to make a start on dirt. But as of now, just with what I've got going on, I'd have to say asphalt.
And with the racetrack closures, not just in the Pacific Northwest, but around the country, If you were a track owner or promoter, what would you try to do to keep some of these tracks going?
I guess try to get creative. Like Matt at State Line has done a really good job recently with making it not so much only a racing venue as it is also an entertainment venue. They hold concerts, they do family themed events, anything you can do to kind of help keep the community interested and, keep some income flowing in to hopefully show that the people that own the track, whether you own it as a promoter or if you're just managing it, that it's still worth it to keep open because I mean, at the end of the day, it's racers are important to the track because they want to see people come out there and put on a show. But at the same time, if they're not putting people in the stands selling beers and food, then it can get hard.
That's true. And in your intro paragraph, we touched kind of on an accident that you had. How have you recovered from that?
I've been extremely fortunate and lucky that I guess I'm young enough and healthy enough that I've actually been recovering really well. It's a surgery that, or it's an injury that the doctor that I've been speaking with has said typically they would try to fix surgically, but because of some holdups and paperwork, and I was between jobs at the time, like insurance. By the time it got figured out, I was about a month post accident, and at that point, I had been healing really well. So we gave it a shot on letting it heal non-surgically and resetting my healing time. And physical therapy's gone really well. Everything's healing really well. The alignment of everything looks good. So I've been very fortunate to have healed really well.
Well, I'm glad. And what are you thinking about when you drive around the racetrack? Do you have any specific thoughts?
Um, Not that I can think of. I try to generally keep my head about as clear as I can, just in case anything might happen in front of me, or around me, just to try to be as aware as possible. But, for the most part, I guess just focusing on getting good corners and especially in the legend car because everyone's on almost the same stuff. So like you have to out corner, you have to out momentum, you have to out racecraft people to make your car faster than the other because no one has more horsepower than each other or a better part or things like that.
And in your personal opinion, do you believe race car driving can help with defensive driving skills?
I believe so. I mean, like everything seems much slower on a highway or on a city street, obviously, but it kind of teaches you to be more aware of than more stuff than like what's right in front of your hood. Ideally you want to be aware of all your surroundings. So I feel like that does transfer over.
And how do you prepare for a race weekend?
Especially in the summer, because it gets hot time to time out here, especially in like the Pacific Northwest lately. Starting to really try to make sure I'm hydrated 2 to 3 days beforehand, just so I don't show up on Saturday and I'm trying to slam down a bunch of water. My body's not ready for it. Um, Eating a little healthier, bananas, things like that, just to get potassium in your system to avoid any cramps, hopefully. Um, and just overall, just trying to make sure that you get rested as best you can. Sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes you have a late night in the shop or whatever in your driveway, but just overall trying to be in a good mental state and a good physical state.
And what does a race weekend look like for you? Like from the minute you wake up to the minute you load that car on the trailer, what does the race weekend look like for you?
Typically, we try to be pretty good about being as prepared as we can the night before so that hopefully all we have to do is either get the car on the trailer or hopefully it's on the trailer the day before. So to take some stress off that morning, wake up, eat some breakfast. We have a dog that we take to daycare and she stays the night on race night so you don't have to worry about her. So get her loaded up, car loaded up, take her to the daycare, drop her off, get to the track, unload, and try to get some practice in, fix any issues that we might have, or try to find a little speed, and then make our way through the night.
And then my final question for you this evening before I throw it back to Adam, how do you work with your team during a race?
Uh, Usually it's all pretty smooth. My team 9 times out of 10 is basically just me and my wife, and maybe some people around us that might pitch in and help out a little bit. So it helps. We already have really good communication. We've been together a while, so typically speaking, everything goes pretty smooth. And as time's gone on, she's learned more about what needs to be ready and things like that. So generally, we don't have any major hiccups.
And if my listeners were interested in more information about you and your race team, where would they find that information?
I have a Facebook page that I kind of started. I'm trying to get going, just Marquis Smith Racing. Or you can even just shoot me a friend request on Facebook. I'm pretty friendly and I accept a lot of people in the racing community. I used to be a store manager at Impel Motorsports for a year before that ended, and now I'm at Race Cows working in the shipping and receiving area. So thankfully get to work amongst racers and things like that.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for coming to the program. I hope you have a really good year.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Yep, you too.
Once again, that was Marquis Smith, who races in the Legend Series in Idaho. You might see him expand his reach a little bit further in the future. You never know. Be on the lookout for him. Are you a race car driver, crew chief, pit member, track owner, or maybe you're just a huge fan of the sport? Contact us to get respond on the show. After all, you deserve your 50 minutes of fame, and we'd love to hear from you. Easiest way to do that is to go to our website. That's the Thursday Night Thunder Podcast. ThursdayNightThunderPodcast.podbean.com. Easiest way to find that. Or you can just go to Facebook.com/SD Thursday Night Thunder. We already talked a little bit about the Tony Stewart Racing news. That's kind of an interesting thing that popped up. There's been some other things the past week, of course, with Tony Stewart getting into his accident there at the racetrack. Fortunately, he's doing well after that. It was a heck of a hit, though, and I haven't seen a top fuel accident like that in a long time. So that'll be something they have to look at, I'm sure, to see what the cause of it was, how they can keep the cars from crossing the center line like that. I know they've worked on it for a long time. Tony Stewart was basically an innocent victim being hit by the other car, but that's they have to work on that a little bit. I'm sure that they're always trying to think of something. The safety safari there in the NHRA is amazing. They do a great job. RPM Raceway, the immersive racing entertainment destination with locations on the East Coast, is redefining go-kart racing with the launch of Kart Clash, the nation's first ever real-life racing game that merges live go-karting with an interactive video game. With a commitment to transforming the traditional analog racing experience into a gamified adventure, RPM Raceway is expanding its offerings and pioneering a new era of motorsports entertainment. It launched simultaneously at RPM's Stamford, Connecticut, and Long Island, New York locations on September 15th. The other locations to follow. Kart Clash reinvents traditional go-kart racing into high-octane arcade-style battle, where speed meets strategy.
Driving go-karts equipped with F1-inspired steering wheels and LED displays, racers collect and activate power-ups, including missiles, EMPs, TNTs, boosts, and shields while navigating the track. Mystery boxes and boost zones add a layer of tactical gameplay where each decision can make or break the race and give the edge needed to pass competitors on the track. RPM Raceway is further solidifying its position as a leader in karting innovation with the recent addition of new fleet of next-generation electric karts at its venues in Stamford, Connecticut, and Long Island, New York. In April, RPM was awarded the Guinness Book of World Record for longest indoor multi-level go-kart track in the world.
Built on RPM's R-Tech platform and developed in partnership with industry leader SodaKart, RPM's new technology represents a leap forward in racing innovation. Each car is equipped with a next-gen LED heads-up display that delivers real-time stats, sector data, and performance insights, streamed directly to each racer during the race. The launch marks a milestone in RPM Raceway's ongoing commitment to modernizing the karting experience by combining the adrenaline of real-world racing and the excitement of interactive entertainment. Kart Clash will feature designed race sessions where juniors, teens, and adults compete together in this immersive, skill-driven format. Live leaderboards and detailed performance tracking promise to help keep gameplay fresh and challenging for both seasoned racers, emerging speed demons, and spectators watching from the sidelines. For more information, visit rpmraceway.com.
Formula One Heineken Las Vegas Grand Prix has announced the extension of its agreement with global hospitality and entertainment leader MGM Resorts International, continuing the company's role as a founding partner through 2030. As part of the renewal, MGM Resorts will continue to host the winner's stage at Bellagio Fountain Club, one of the race's preeminent luxury race watching destinations. Positioned above the iconic fountains of Bellagio and overlooking the Las Vegas Strip circuit, the venue offers guests front row views of the circuit's longest and fastest straightaway, where cars exceed 210 miles per hour as they blast past turn 13. Bellagio Fountain Club elevates the experience with a culinary program featuring globally renowned chefs ranging from Jose Andres and Mario Carbone to Masari Morimoto and Antonio Lofaso, an open bar featuring signature cocktails and curated premium wines and high-energy nightlife at its rooftop lounge. When the checkered flag falls, the winner's stage transforms into the ultimate celebration hub for driver appearances and post-race interviews.
In addition to Bellagio Fountain Club, MGM Resorts will deliver a variety of activations and official retail offerings throughout its Las Vegas properties in the MGM zone, designed to immerse fans in the excitement of Formula One throughout the race week. The strategic relationship between Las Vegas Grand Prix and MGM Resorts will continue to deliver world-class hospitality, curate entertainment, and luxury experiences that position Las Vegas as a premier destination on the Formula One calendar. For more information about the Formula One Heineken Las Vegas Grand Prix, visit F1 Las Vegas Grand Prix, that's F1 at LasVegasGP.com/tickets.
NASCAR announced that the annual NASCAR Awards will take place in Scottsdale, Arizona on November 4th, capping off what promises to be a thrilling championship weekend. The prestigious event will bring together drivers, teams, industry executives, and fans to celebrate the 2025 season and honor the newly crowned champions from the NASCAR Cup Series, NASCAR Xfinity Series, and NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Most recently held in Charlotte, North Carolina, this marks the first time the event will be held in Arizona, reflecting NASCAR's continued commitment to delivering memorable experiences in new and dynamic markets. The awards ceremony and preceding red carpet will be live streamed exclusively from 6 p.m. Eastern on the NASCAR channel, allowing fans to join in the celebration. The NASCAR channel, a free ad-supported streaming channel, can be found on Xumo Play, XUMO Play, Tubi, the Roku channel, Samsung TV Plus, and Prime Video.
Following the championship races at Phoenix Raceway, which conclude on Sunday, November 2nd, with the NASCAR Cup Series Championship race, the move to Scottsdale allows for a seamless transition into the awards celebration. The city's renowned hospitality, culture, and scenic desert landscapes are expected to deliver an unforgettable experience for both guests and viewers. NASCAR will host the celebration for the NASCAR Regional Series, ARCA Menards Series, ARCA Menards East Series, ARCA Menards Series West, NASCAR Wayland Modified Tour, and NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series, and NASCAR National Series, NASCAR Brazil Series, NASCAR Canada Series, NASCAR Mexico Series, and NASCAR Wayland Euro Series on Friday, November 21st in Charlotte, North Carolina at the Charlotte Convention Center. I'm not entirely sure I like the idea of them having the awards ceremony in Scottsdale. Scottsdale is Scottsdale. Scottsdale's interesting. Good for them to have the thing there. But it's not New York City, which I thought was when they were at the pinnacle of their success, when they had the award ceremony there. It's not Charlotte, where they have all the teams and all the racing culture around there. It's Scottsdale. Now, that could be good. It could be amazing. It could be kind of cool. I don't know. I think it's kind of a convenience thing, because in the past, it's more than a few years ago, but in the past they had the final race of the season for the Xfinity Series, and the Truck Series took place at the Disney World Speedway. That was in like 2000, but they did have that race there, and then they had the award ceremony at the Walt Disney World Resort for those two series. That was kind of hokey too, and that's kind of the impression I'm getting with them having the award ceremony in Scottsdale right after the race. I don't know if it cheapens it, but I think it does. I think it makes it not as important, not as much of an honor. When they had it in New York, that was sort of an honor, because they got to go to New York, they get to hang out the Waldorf Astoria and all that. Moving to Charlotte Convention Center was okay, but it wasn't as big as it was in New York, and now moving to Scottsdale. That's kind of a questionable thing in my mind. I don't think it's a good move, but we'll see how it goes.
Where would you, other than New York, well, maybe included New York, where would you like to see them do the ceremony?
I think if they're going to be they're in that part of the country, they should go to Las Vegas or something. That would be a big deal to have it in a in a convention city with all the glitz and glamour and all that. That would be more impressive to me than having it in an area right there in the middle of Arizona. Um, I don't know why they didn't do that. Maybe they considered it, but you never know. And I wonder if it's going to move around, considering they're going to move the championship race from Phoenix to Homestead next year. Maybe they can have the awards ceremony in Miami next year. You never know. I don't know if they're going to move it around with the last race or how they're going to do it. That'll be something that'll be interesting to see as well.
I think Las Vegas would have been a good choice. Only because they're already going to be like in the race car mindset over there because of the Grand Prix. I think that would have been cool.
Hmm. I agree. I think it would have been a really good thing to have them sort of incorporated with the race in Las Vegas, the Formula One race. That would have been really really neat. I know that they don't want to be compared to them, and that's fine. But I think that they should work with them, and it might be a better thing than again having it in the middle of Scottsdale, Arizona. Although it could be cool to have it in Scottsdale, I don't think it will be. We'll see how they go. I'm sure that they'll try their best. I'm sure they'll hype it up and do the scenic desert and all that other stuff. But it just doesn't have the same ring to it as it used to.
I agree. I agree.
As we talked a little bit a few weeks ago, we talked about the race there in Portland, the Xfinity race. It looks like the Xfinity race, which next year will be the the O'Reilly Auto Parts race, will not be taking place in in Portland. Also, the Formula E Series, which has been in Portland for several years, is moving away from the racetrack there. However, the IndyCar race will be returning to Portland International Raceway next August. August 9th, I believe, is when they'll be there. So I'm not entirely sure why they decided to move stuff away from Portland. Now they had the rumors of connectivity issues with the internet and all that. But I don't think that's really as big of a deal, especially considering the Formula E has been there for several years. They've never had any problems with it. Uh, so it'll be something to see. I think IndyCar has been on a great show in Portland. They've been there for several years. They had a long break, but they were there for the longest time in the 80s and 90s, and then they've recently come back the past 3 years. So I think the Portland just has some issues. Portland, the track isn't as well maintained as it could be. They're not having the best attendance, although it is still okay. So we'll see how IndyCar does next season. Might be an interesting race to head out to. I've kind of been thinking about that. So I do have some vacation time next year that I'm going to hopefully be able to use. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes there in Portland, whether IndyCar announces they're going to be leaving Portland as well. Although I doubt it because they did just issue their schedule yesterday, their formal schedule. So, and they seem to be interested in investing in Portland for the long haul. So, should be good. We'll see how that goes, though.
So, do you think the connectivity issues was kind of them just being nice?
I think it's an excuse. I think that's what that NASCAR used that, especially some of the teams in Xfinity use that as an excuse to get out of their contract with the track, to move away because they say that they're not getting as much internet connectivity as they should. If Formula E, which is connected from the moment they turn on the car until the moment they turn off the car, and that includes pit road and everything, and in the garages, can have no issues for several years, then they're using it as an excuse. So that's basically all there is to it. They're using it as an excuse. They want a reason to get out of their contract, and they use that as an excuse.
Well, that's pretty hokey.
Mm-hmm.
If that's their kind of way of, I don't know, that's hokey.
Mm-hmm.
That's not nice.
No, I think that they could have gone about it a different way. They could have, but I think that NASCAR has some. They have everybody's trying to save money. Is what it seems like too. And I think that by having the race in I think it's in Darlington the same weekend now. By having both series in Darlington as opposed to having one series in Portland, the other one in Darlington, that could be that's definitely a money saver for them. But there's a lot to be said about expanding the series across the country, which is what they've tried to do in the past. So I don't know what they're thinking, whether it's a 1 year thing or whether they're trying to modify the schedule a little bit just to change things up. But it seems like they're trying things differently, which is good. But they're also reverting back to things that may or may not have worked in the past, and they have the reasons. And I don't pretend to know all of them. I don't pretend to know half of them, but it just doesn't seem to entirely make sense where they're doing things with their schedule. Not only for NASCAR, but even for Formula E. But Formula E schedule is insane, and I would never be able to understand that because it seems like they're doing really well someplace, and they move to an entirely different place that they seem to do okay with, and then they move again. So um, that's there's a lot of things in play there, and hopefully they know them, and hopefully it keeps going. Like I said, it seems like there's some series are trying to adjust their schedule to based on cost. Some are based on sponsors. Some are based on people showing up. There's a lot of moving parts there, and we'll see how it goes. Um, if I had the chance, I'd keep the racing in Portland just because they don't have a big presence in Pacific Northwest, either NASCAR or Formula E. So I think they're making a mistake by moving away from there. I think IndyCar is doing a good thing by keeping the racing in Portland, even though the track may not be as pristine as certain other facilities. It's still pretty good. It's a nice place to go. It looks like it's very convenient for the city, and so that's definitely going for it. So there's a lot of interesting things there, and hopefully the racing in IndyCar in August shows that the other series made a mistake by leaving the city.
Yeah, I agree. Good for IndyCar. We'll see if they have connection issues.
Exactly. I don't think they will. I think it'll go really well, and I think but it'll be interesting to see how some of the scheduling things they've made with IndyCar next season are also a little odd. They've got a couple of double headers with NASCAR. They have some double headers with actually NASCAR Cup events that are not. They don't really make sense synergy wise, I suppose. But I think they're trying to sort of get a crossover thing between the two series, which they don't necessarily have all the time. So it'd be cool to see that. And I know they've had races in the past with the Truck Series. They have a few more races with the Truck Series next year. I'm hoping to actually get to one of them. So should be a good year of racing next year. There's a lot of changes, a lot of positive changes, a few negative changes, and as always, it's just to take the good with the bad and see how well everything goes.
If you had to just randomly guess, how much do you think it costs to start from the ground up, like a racetrack that NASCAR could race at? How much do you think it would cost to build a NASCAR sanctioned track?
Ooh, a lot of money. And they try not to spend their own money, but I think if they had to spend their own money, they'd probably be looking at between 75 and 100 million to be on the cheap side. But they're like a lot of things. Like a lot of professional organizations, they try not to spend their own money. They try to convince uh, areas to give up the land and that sort of thing. Even for Daytona, especially for Daytona, they convinced the county long ago. They convinced the county to give up the land right next to the airport that nobody was really interested in anyway. They gave it up to them, and they've taken it and ran with it. So, but if they had to buy it from the ground up, it would have been an awful lot of money, and they spend a lot of money on most of their tracks. So, way too much.
Did they end up doing anything with the airport property?
They always have. They've expanded. A lot of stuff around the airport. They've got the basic some of the facility for the Daytona International Speedway is right next to the airport. Most of the track is within all the track is within a few miles of it, but most of the facilities, some of the facilities right there next to it. They've got the the motorcycle facility that's on former airport slash dog racing track area there. So France Army is great at making deals, and I think that that's one of the advantages NASCAR has. They're really good at cozying up to different people, whether it's the politicians or local governments or whatever. They try to make really good deals, and I'm sure that's part of why they're having the event there at the award ceremony back in Scottsdale, because they got a really good deal on it, and that's part of what it is, I'm sure.
True, I can see that.
Yeah. So, what's your next big racing adventure out there? I know you've got. It seems to be it's really hot out there. I know, but I know you've got a few other big races coming up out there.
Yeah, it's still pretty dang hot. But you know what? I'm not complaining because normally I'd be wearing a sweater. So it's still hot and I am grateful. I love it when it's hot. But yeah, there's like the championship race coming up at Wenatchee Valley Super Oval. I don't actually think we will be attending, only because I'm throwing a birthday party that day. But there's that. And I always get the two mixed up. But there's another big race. It's also at the end of September usually, maybe like more into October. I'm not sure. But I always get, because there's two races and they're basically the same thing. There's just the names are just swapped around. But yeah, there's quite a lot of stuff out here still. Oh, and I find this pretty cool. If you're into go-karts, which I think you could be into go-karts, you could come down to Washington and race some go-karts. The Wenatchee Valley Super Oval has like a go-kart division type thing, and people build go-karts and they go race them from like October to, well, I'm not really sure how long, but they do that kind of during the colder months, and I think that's actually pretty neat to keep people involved on, like the regular season, off season type stuff. So there's a few good things around here still. And like I said, there's one thing that does go into the colder months, and I think that's pretty neat. What about
Yes.
you? I know you guys are always pretty much sunny over there. So is there any good big races over there anytime soon that you'll be visiting?
Not really. No, it's kind of quiet. There's a lot. There's a few things. Like we've said before. There's a facility out there in Hendry County, which is about an hour and a half from here. That I do have a set of tickets for in the other room that I haven't yet not used. But they do have a facility out there that races about almost every week. So that's cool, and I'm happy they're out there. I'm happy they're doing well. So always go out and support your local track. It's unfortunate we don't have any more local facilities other than that one. But since we do have that one, please head out to the Hendry Racing Facility there, close to Lake Okeechobee, and check that out. That would be my little tidbit for them. Please check that out. There's also, of course, the weekly racing taking place in the Smyrna Speedway, which is really cool. I haven't been out there in a few years, but they do have really good stuff there. They've had some awesome stock car events I've read a little bit about recently, so that's really neat to go check that out. But around me specifically, not as much as there used to be. There hasn't been any news about the Palm Beach International Raceway in about a month. As I stated, they did have that on the IHRA webpage for about an hour that they were planning on having an event out there, but that was pulled rather quickly. So I think it was either somebody who was not supposed to release that information, or that wasn't a deal that was totally signed yet, or a little bit of both. But eventually they will do something out there, and I know the IHRA had invested in the track heavily in the past, and I know they're looking at it again, as well as the South Georgia Motorsports Park was looking at it. Even there were rumors that Cletus McFarland there and that organization was looking at the track too. So everybody's interested in redeveloping the Palm Beach International Raceway, do another racetrack, and hopefully they do. I'd love to see that. But other than that, no, there's not much stuff. There is a racetrack on the Treasure Coast that's being developed. That's mostly a country club style racetrack, similar to Barber Motorsports Park there in Alabama. So, and even similar to the the racetrack there near Sebring, where they have all the testing and private stuff there. So I've seen a little bit about that, but again, that's a private facility. That's not something that the average person would out to, unless you're the sort of average person who has a supercar in your garage. And if you are, that's great. So anybody's interested in that, you can look it up. I've got information on that I'll go ahead and post to the Facebook page in the next few weeks. Be sure to look out for that. But other than that, not as much going on over here. There is a boat race taking place in the Keys shortly, so that would be interesting too. If you have a little bit of extra time, go down, head down to the Keys, and watch the offshore power boats. That's pretty awesome. Other than that, no. Most of the stuff I'm planning on doing will be next spring, going out back to Daytona for the World Before the Rocks 24. More than likely, we'll be doing that on like a Friday, make it like a day trip again. And again, we're talking about going back to St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is March, so a lot of stuff early next year should be really good.
And then, what about that facility that was opening? I can't remember where it was opening. I believe it was the Florida area, but we talked about it on the program. It was kind of next to the racetrack, or even on the same grounds as the racetrack. Is that open and going yet?
It is open, but they're sort of redeveloping it. They've done they had a management and name change there, but last time we were in Sebring, which was a few months ago now, they did have a lot of information about that there. So be sure to check that out. I do not remember the name off the top of my head, but I will post it because it has been redone. That's another thing I'm going to post up to the Facebook page as soon as I get information again. I'll look that up shortly. But so there's a lot of stuff going on, and Sebring is pretty cool, and that would be neat if you had especially since they're going to put in the houses type thing, the condominiums, houses and condominiums right with a huge garage right in front of your house, and you can get access to the racetrack. I think on weekends and sometimes during the week as well. So that'd be really neat. I don't think it'd be something that I personally would be interested in because Sebring is still the middle of nowhere. Although the nowhere is getting smaller and smaller, Sebring is still pretty much middle of nowhere. So, but it's kind of a neat thing. It's fairly close to Orlando now. It's not very far from here. Not very far from a lot of population centers. So I can see why they're putting it in there. And it's got the track right there, so it'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think that's a great idea, and I think it'd be neat if more places could pull something like that off.
Mm-hmm. There were redevelopment ideas around Palm Beach International at one point. They're going to put in some small developments, houses, and condos and that sort of thing as well, with access to the racetrack. So it's good when that thing works. So hopefully they have a lot of success with it. I know that when we talked to the PR guy in the initial last year, we talked to him when they were first getting the project off the ground. He seemed really interested in it. He seemed like they had a lot of good plans, and hopefully it goes really well for them. So it's been a interesting week here in racing. The Tony Stewart news dominated, of course, with the signing of his new contract for next year in Top Fuel, the signing of Rico Abreu for the sprint car, and his little incident they had this past weekend, which kind of got the week started a little bad for him, but it's gone uphill from there. There's not a lot of other news in racing, of course, but a lot of places are putting out their schedules, and I'll be going and posting those on the website shortly. I have posted a few of them last week. And with that, be sure to check out past episodes of Thursday Night Thunder by visiting facebook.com/SD Thursday Night Thunder. It's also where you can get in touch with us, the easier place. Listen to previous episodes of the show at Thursday Night Thunder Podcast.podbean.com. We're now up to almost 2,000 downloads of the program, so I thank all of you for that. You can download it there at Thursday Night Thunder Podcast.podbean.com. Or you can listen to the show on Podchaser. You also find it on iHeartRadio, Boomplay, Spotify, and Player XM. As well as Amazon Music now has it, as does Google. And you can find the show on YouTube at youtube.com/FavorPlums, FavorPlumbs. all these past 28 episodes have been archived there, so you can find it all there. Plus, you got past episodes of the show from its previous incarnation. A couple episodes can be found on there as well. You can also visit podbean.com/user-live-fan club/1123570-DPDY4 for more information on the fan club. Go to facebook.com/SD Thursday Night Thunder. Up at the top, we've got information about our fan club there. Be sure to check that out. I also invite you to check out my racing news site at motorsportsnewsandviews.wordpress.com. Got a lot of racing schedules up there now. A lot of information about next season. Some past updates about racing events as well. Be sure to visit there. In addition, if you're a fan of South Florida and who isn't, be sure to check out the latest news and information about our slice of paradise and my travel blog, For Plum's Fantastic Finds, which can be found on Facebook at For Plum's Fantastic Finds. On Twitter, you can go to @PBHappening for that, and by heading to For Plum's Fantastic Finds.wordpress.com. That's FABORPLUMBS Fantastic Finds.wordpress.com.
When you spell out Fabor plums, it reminds me of the friendship song from SpongeBob.
Exactly.
Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again next week in the Thunderdome as we discuss the major issues in the world of modern auto racing.
Thanks again, and have a great week.